To present the Ramona Ripston Liberty, Justice, and Equality Award, please welcome actor, producer, and writer Bob Balaban.
Hello, 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 here I am. Now, a number of you have had the great pleasure of both knowing and working with our first honoree, Judy Balaban. So not to brag, but I can do you one better. I'm Judy's first cousin. And I'm very proud of it. And Judy's father, Barney Balaban, was the oldest of 7 Balaban brothers. My father was the youngest. Our grandparents fled a pogrom in Russia in the late 1800s and ended up in Chicago, where they went from owning a grocery store to owning a Nickelodeon to owning many Nickelodeons. And by the time Barney was a young man, he and his brothers had built one of the largest picture palaces in the Midwest. So when Adolph Zukor, the founder of Paramount, asked Barney to be his successor, Paramount's films were produced in LA, but the business side was managed out of New York, so Judy and her family moved east. Now, my father and the other brothers stayed in Chicago, so I never got to know Judy when I was growing up. And I was in my 20s before I finally met her. So I'd moved to California, and she invited me to dinner, and all I knew about Judy Balaban was that Marlon Brando had been the best man at her wedding. Oh, I also knew that she had been a bridesmaid at Princess Grace's wedding and that she had this amazing red hair that a few lucky people in our family had when they were lucky enough to have hair. But Judy was not at all what I had expected. Her privileged upbringing somehow hadn't blinded her to the needs of other people. She actually had a deep social conscience. You could tell immediately. She cared about injustice, and there was no question that she was going to do something about it. So my dinner with Judy was the beginning of one of the most meaningful relationships in my life. And we became great friends, which is even better than being cousins. And we have worked together on a bunch of causes, and I've seen Judy in action. So here's Judy. Judy's reasonable, she fights when she has to, but she does it so gracefully and diplomatically, you rarely notice that you're losing the argument. Now, Judy has the tactical mind of a 5-star general. She knows how to lead without ever acting like the leader, and she rarely takes credit for the things she does. She would rather give credit to the people who are working with her. So, Judy spearheaded the first entertainment community fundraiser for Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And she organized them in all the western states for Dr. King for the March on Washington. She registered black voters in the South. She worked with Senator Jacob Javits to stop a filibuster that would have killed the Civil Rights Act. She served on the Fair Employment Practices Commission, helping to create employment for minority workers. She's a founding member of the Constitutional Rights Foundation. Jerry Brown appointed her to the Contractor State Licensing Board, which is the second largest consumer protection agency in the country. She served for 10 years. And Judy is also a New York Times best-selling author and a contributor to Vanity Fair magazine, by the way. Now, for nearly 40 years, and get up, Judy, and start coming up here if you would. Judy has been a guiding force on the board of the ACLU Foundation of Southern California, helping to shape the future of justice in this country. Now, the Ramona Ripston Liberty, Justice, and Equality Award is the highest honor the ACLU of Southern California can bestow. It is given to the individual whose life best reflects Ramona Ripston's ideals of a just society. Now, where's the award? There it is. So on behalf of the ACLU, don't get here too quickly, here, I'll be right there. The ACLU of Southern California, I am delighted to present this award to my cousin and my friend, Judy Balaban.
I'm overwhelmed.
I'm putting it closer to your mouth.
Thank you, my darling. Bob, thank you so much. I'm so lucky to have you in my life. I'm so lucky to be here tonight, but you know, I feel almost that I'm at a loss for words. Anyone who knows me would tell you that's damn close to impossible, but in any case, I look out a sea of faces of loving, supportive, generous people, and it just warms my heart incredibly. I can't believe that I'm winning an award named for the remarkable Ramona Ripston. Ramona Ripston led this ACLU affiliate with the most inspired guidance for close to 40 years, and I was fortunate enough to be able to spend most of them working alongside of her on a lot of different projects. But she was an amazing person because she wasn't satisfied with what the ACLU was doing in those days. And though she wasn't a lawyer, she had the most vivid imagination about what the law could do to help Americans and people in this country. She expanded the point of view of the ACLU. She transitioned it from the late 20th century into the beginning of the 21st century and expanded what the ACLU addressed beyond traditional civil liberties. She encompassed then the justice and the equality that was also promised by the Constitution. So I'm deeply humbled to win an award in Ramona's name. I was doubly blessed because I not only got to be inspired by her, but we formed a warm and close friendship that lasted for 40 years. I'm very honored tonight to tell you that there's another reason why this night is very special personally to me. Bob mentioned my dad, Barney Balaban. Many of you in this room probably know that he was president of Paramount Pictures, a job he held for almost 30 years. He was very grateful for what America had done for his family. And he spent ages and ages, time and time again, reading more American history than anyone you could consume. In the 40s, he began collecting Americana. And almost everything he got came from a man in Philadelphia. So he was one day visiting this dealer, and he was taken into the cellar, and he was shown this air-conditioned, specially air temperature-controlled vault. And inside of it was a document that had been authenticated as one of the 14 original signed copies of the Bill of Rights. So it seemed that what happened was that they had made 14 copies originally, 13 for the colonies that were going to become states, and one for the Treasury Department. And during the Civil War, one of the southern states had sold its copy. Figures, huh? Anyway, one of the southern states had sold its copy to raise money for armaments. And, well, at least it wasn't for a profit. Anyway, and that was the copy that my father saw. Now, he knew at that time that there was only, the Library of Congress, incidentally, was where our documents were housed in those days. They were enshrined there. They've since been moved to the National Archives. But in those days, when you went there, the Library of Congress had an original of the Declaration, an original of the Constitution, but had only a photocopy of the Bill of Rights. So my father, who is, as I said, enormous, and Bob said, enormously grateful for the opportunities awarded to his parents when they moved here as immigrants in the mid-19th century, purchased the Bill of Rights. And on February 21st of 1945, when I was 12 years old, he presented us at the Library of Congress and the people of the United States of America. So I was a natural for the Bill of Rights. I was preconditioned. They sort of, got me all ready and shoved me out there, and there was the Bill of Rights waiting for me to do what I had always wanted to do. I tried to read the Constitution at the same time, and I confess to you It was pretty heavy sledding for me at 12. I got about a third of the way through, and I gave up. But I went back to the preamble, and I thought, this is what I want to be. I want to be their posterity. They did this amazing thing. They gave this ennobling trust to all of us, that we could do what they did. We could make a more perfect union in our own time for ourselves and our own posterity. And the ACLU seemed to me like the perfect place to be able to do that job. And what a great job it is, because everybody has the same job. You don't do this job alone. You do it with your family, you do it with your friends, you do it with people you never met, that you'll never meet, all over the country. So I came to the ACLU, and I learned very quickly that the ACLU is an amazing bit of exchange. If the phrase wasn't so terrible nowadays, I'd say, since it means something for something, when you get something from the ACLU, you give something back. I won't do the Latin. You know the Latin. But here's how it works. You have an idea in your head. You give something to the ACLU, a resource of yours, whether it's time, energy, blogging, whatever it is you can do, money, whatever you can give. And the ACLU takes your idea, right here, this amorphic thing that's your idea that you talk about with your family or your friends or whatever, and it enlivens it. It activates it. It takes it and puts legs on it. It walks it into communities. It walks it into hearing rooms. It walks it into courtrooms. And it helps you define the America you want to live in. I think that's a miracle. So, what I wanted to tell you only that, other than being a parent and a grandparent, spending 40 years with Ramona Ripston and 40 years working with the ACLU, and this glorious night in the presence of all of you angels of the ACLU is certainly the ultimate and most inestimable privilege of my lifetime.